Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpop coming to you from Arby's. Couldn't do this in Arby's because they had the music playing. But this is a Jamocha shake. Pretty darn tasty. Good thing grandmother doesn't know that. Well, she doesn't watch these things, or she would know that I'm sneaking out for milkshakes. Welcome to a 3-part series called Living Free. There was a famous man, prolific writer, and I guess he was an anthropologist, I'm not really sure. His name was Joseph Campbell. One of the things that he put forward was something in like archetypal literature, archetypal stories, which were passed on word of mouth, on to modern literature. And that was the hero's journey. So there's a guy, sometimes a girl, but quite often a guy, because it was a patriarchal world back in the day, not so much now. But there was a person, and they were wherever they lived. They could be young, they could be old, didn't matter. But a crisis would happen in their life and would cause them to have to leave where they were from, where they were familiar with everything, where they were comfortable in their lives. Something would happen to cause them to go on a journey. And so it's the hero's journey. But the hero isn't a hero yet. They have to go through a series of challenges. And they have to conquer those challenges. And then by the end of it, they become a hero. Now, life is a journey just like the hero's journey. You're going to be faced with a series of challenges. And you have to decide whether you want to face those challenges, take them on, and defeat them, and become the hero of your story, or be a victim. Heroes seek something different than victims. Victims seek security. And Benjamin Franklin said those who would give up freedom for a certain amount of security don't deserve freedom or security, because you have to work for security. What a hero seeks is liberty. Now, I don't know when you think of liberty, what you think of. I think along the lines of Patrick Henry, who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." So what he's saying is that if you're not free, you might as well be dead. Now you might say, well, things have happened in my life and I'm the victim of circumstances. Trust me, you are in control of your destiny. Don't blame your parents. Don't blame your school. Don't blame your friends. That was, I would blame my parents. Oh, they weren't tough enough with me. Oh, they didn't give me enough love. Oh, it was everything but me and my friends. Oh, I always hung out with the wrong crowd. Don't blame your school. Don't blame the world. Don't blame the government. You are in control of your own destiny. And after this 3-part series, hopefully you're going to know how to live your life so that you maximize your liberty, maximize your freedom. So, we're going to discuss 4 things in this 3-part series. In video 1, we're going to discuss what is freedom and do people really want to be free. In video 2, we're going to discuss how we are controlled by those in power. And in video 3, we're going to discuss the 4th thing, how to live free. So let's jump right in with number 1. What is freedom? Now, if I said to you, hey, what is freedom? You'd go, oh, I get to do anything I want to do. Something like that. Well, let's take a look at that. There's a fellow named Dr. Rufus J. Fears. Actually, there was a fellow named Rufus J. Fears. He was a really great professor at the University of Oklahoma. And he says that there's 3 kinds of freedom. The first is national freedom. So the nation you live in is free from the oppression of other nations around them. After a war, the winner usually occupies the loser. They make them pay money, and the loser has to do what the winner says. Or fight again, and then you be the winner. But just because you live in a nation that's not oppressed by another nation doesn't mean that you have any freedom. The citizens in a country that's free from other countries may have very little freedom. So that's one kind. The next kind is political freedom. And that's things like being able to vote for the leaders, the national, local, state leaders. And there's many countries today where the people get to actually vote, and they get free stuff like maybe healthcare, but they have very little freedom. Some of them, the voting that they do is meaningless because, as Barack Obama says, it's not who casts the votes, it's who counts them. Sadly, he's correct about that. If you're counting the votes, you're going to make sure that your guy wins. And in a lot of countries, they say, oh, yeah, we're a free country. And look at that. People can go to any hospital they want and get whatever procedures done that they want. It might take years for that to happen in most of those countries. And quite often, they're not really free. Now, there are some that have legitimate elections and give a lot of social welfare away. And that's fine. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have freedom because you have political freedom and can vote for people. But then, the third is that in very few places in the world during very few times, and they were short windows. During the entire history of mankind, from cavemen to today, some people have had individual liberty. And that's probably what you're thinking of when I say freedom. So there's three kinds, but the kind you want is individual liberty. What is liberty? It's freedom under the law. It's freedom of people to live under laws that they've granted themselves. So when we fought the British, we were under British law, then we took over the country and we created our own laws. We did. There was no tyrant, no king that said, here, this is what you have to do. We sent people to Congress, and we sent people to the state legislatures to decide the laws that we were going to live under. And complementing that political freedom of living under laws that we had a portion in creating is the freedom of the individual. And that is freedom to live as you wish to live, as long as you harm no one else. It's a sticky subject, especially today. People say, oh, well, I have the freedom to believe that I'm another gender. And whatever. People can believe whatever they want to believe. And then they'll say, you have to call me this, whatever it is. So if the person's a boy and they think they're a girl, they say, well, you have to call me a girl. Or you have to use the pronoun they or something. And if you don't, they'll go, oh, you're harming me, so that should be illegal. No, we're talking about real harm. As everybody's mom says, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. We're talking about you can do anything you want to do. Person who believes that they're a different gender, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you can't force me to believe you're a different gender. You can't. Under the law, you can't. Under natural law, you can't. Even if they change the law and go, oh, you have to believe that whatever this person says they are, then even then, under natural law, that's not true. I can do anything that I want to do as long as I don't hurt somebody else. And that's why I don't care if people are gay, if they're transgender, I really don't care what they are. As long as they don't hurt me by doing it. And I'm talking about sticks and stones hurt. Well, not exactly just sticks and stones hurt. You have defamation and things like that are abstract concepts, but bring real harm to people. Not using the correct pronoun isn't going to really harm somebody. And we get caught in the weeds. We start to look at issues and go, oh, this is a big deal. No, it's not. The only thing that's a big deal is freedom. Now, on the other side of I can do anything I want to do as long as I do no harm to another human being or another animal or the property or, whatever. just do no harm. There's a corresponding duty. And we're going to talk about that when we get into this. How to live free. I think it's in the last one. We're going to talk about what your duty is. But you don't get freedom to do whatever you want without hurting somebody else, without protecting that freedom. And that's the duty side of it. Now, there's one thing that I want to talk about. And I wanted to talk about it right up front because there's going to be a lot of people who watch this in the future and say, like, oh, this is really, really unfair. Well, guess what? The world is an unfair place. And the thing is that money is the scorecard of freedom. I hardly ever say, let me repeat that, but this is important enough to say. Money is the scorecard of freedom. Throughout history, the more wealth people had, the more freedom they had. Is that fair? No. Is it reality? Yes. Today, the more wealth people have, the more freedom they have. Now, in a way, that freedom puts them in a prison. There's movie stars that can't walk into a 7-Eleven and, buy a cup of coffee. They can't just walk down the street. They can't go shopping at the mall. They live in these castles almost, moats around them and gators in the moat because they can't come out. They're in prison. But they have the freedom to be able to go wherever they want in the world and do all kinds of things just in their own society. They can go to these exclusive resorts and do amazing things. So there's that. Wealth is a zero-sum game. I'm sorry. Let me roll that back. Wealth isn't a zero-sum game. What does that mean? You have a pie. A zero-sum game is there's 8 pieces in the pie. If you eat 7 pieces, you have 1 left. No matter what you do, you're never going to have more pie. That's not true with wealth. Wealth is created. It's not taken. We have a lot of people who believe that we should take wealth from the wealthy and give it to the not wealthy. That's a bad idea. That's a zero-sum game. Besides that, the more wealth, the more freedom. So these people are free to put their assets all over the world. They have the best attorneys. They have the best wealth managers. They can hide stuff. They're better at it than our government is. What we want to do is to provide an environment so that everybody has a possibility of wealth. That is not a zero-sum game. We want to level the playing field. That's why we had the Civil Rights Act in the early to mid 1960s. To level the playing field. When you try to level the results, you not just don't grow the wealth, you shrink the wealth. It just doesn't work. We want to make a society where people go out and they invent things and produce things and make everybody's life better and become wealthy. We want people to become wealthy because the more wealth that's produced, the more wealth everybody gets. And because wealth's going up, freedom is going up. So it seems unfair. More wealth, more freedom. But it's not. The world's unfair. So if it's unfair, it's unfair. When the government gets involved and they get into like bureaucratic wealth, programs that cost a lot of money that they do, that's a zero-sum game. That puts very little money into the economy in the long run. It just floods the economy and it causes inflation. Inflation takes away your wealth, so it takes away your freedom. Remember, in the long run, wealth equals power. The wealthiest people have always been the most powerful people, and vice versa. So we have to, and vice versa. Like, not only does it suck being poor, but poor people have to pay for things that rich people never have to pay. Let me give you some examples. It's called the added cost of being poor. Poor people quite often go to a check cashing agency to cash their paycheck. Rich people never do that. Poor people quite often have to pay their bills by getting money orders or cashier's checks. All that stuff costs money. Rich people put their money in the bank because the bank wants them to have it. The same bank that's going to say to rich people, oh, bring all your money in. Yeah, this is great. Nothing's going to cost you. When poor people go there, they say, you have to keep this much in your checking account to have free checking. Rich people never have to worry about that. That's the added effect of being poor. So one thing that you want to do, and certainly not the only thing, but it's important, is to try not to be poor. You don't have to obsess on becoming wealthy or anything like that. But you want to have a certain amount of wealth so that you're in control of your world. But people get so much power because they have so much wealth that they have to be kept in check. How is that done? Government can go after monopolies because monopolies can just charge what they want to charge. There was a time in the United States when all phones were in your house. There were no cell phones. The phones were in your house, hanging on the wall or sitting on a little table, connected to the wall. And there was one company that ran the phone service. The government came in and said, no, we're gonna make that illegal. And they split up the phone company and they opened up competition. Now we have amazing phones. Back then, there were things called party lines where you'd pick up the phone, there'd be somebody else on it, and they'd go, oh, I need another 10 minutes, I'm talking to my mom. It's so much better now. But we have to balance that. Wealth is power, but then wealth can be used to oppress other people. It's something that you always have to think about. It's the first big principle of this. Freedom isn't free, and freedom costs you a lot. And one of the things that it costs you is thinking about it. Next, I want to talk about, do people even really want to be free? Here's a speech by a guy named William Wallace. He was a real character, probably made a speech at this battle. It's in a movie called Braveheart, and he was playing I think a Scotsman. Yeah, a Scotsman. And he was getting ready to fight the British. And he says this: I fight and ye may die. Run and you'll live. And so they're out there in the field, and the British troops are across from them, and they're getting ready to fight the British troops. And his guys, before every battle, there's guys that go, I think I'm just going to get out of here. And so there's people on this battlefield going, yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to beat them, so I think we should just leave. And he says, I fight and you may die. Run and you'll live, at least a while. And dying in your bed, because we're all going to die, right? But he's saying later, whenever it happens and you die naturally in your bed, and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance to come back here and tell our enemies that you can take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? So it's a fictional speech from an actual event. Sounds like, just with Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, that freedom is the most important, or one of the most important things in our lives. Except that it isn't. I just did I think it was a 2-part series on logical fallacies, and I talked about Freud's pleasure principle. Freud said that we seek pleasure and we avoid pain, sometimes at any cost. It's just the way that we're set up. Now, the base of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of human needs starts with these. So this guy, Maslow was a psychologist, well, I guess psychiatrist, but psychology is the field. Psychiatrists can prescribe drugs. And he had this hierarchy of human needs, saying that people need to get these, and then they'll start to get these, and then they'll start to get these, and then they'll start to get these. So the base of it, the bottom, is physical, such as air, water, food, sleep, light, and heat. You can get all of those things without freedom. There's people all over the world that have a modicum of comfort. They have all the air they need. They have all the water they need, the light that they need, and they have no freedom. And then the next step up on the human hierarchy of needs is safety. And that's things like your health, personal security, emotional security, financial security. And you can receive most of these with very little freedom. So these are the things that if we want to be happy, and Freud says that we all do, we're going to seek these things, but we're going to avoid pain. So if it costs us anything to get them, we're going to avoid that. If somebody gives it to us, but doesn't give us any freedom, we'll take it. And then the next one up is love and social needs. That's things like family, friendship, intimacy, trust, acceptance, receiving and giving love and affection. You can even have a certain amount of those things without freedom. And even the top one, which is self-esteem, these things are cognitive, they're like aesthetics, self-actualization, and transcendence. It's feeling good about yourself because of who you are. There's a reason why humans rule the world and dogs don't. And most dogs are nicer than humans, but they don't have self-esteem. They don't have all these things. But you can fool yourself into believing that you have that self-esteem, even in an environment of limited freedom. So Freud says we're going to try to have, peace and good feeling in our life, and we're going to avoid painful things. And Maslow is saying that, we build our lives from the basic needs up to the aesthetic, like esteem, feeling good about yourself things. And you can get most of that with very little freedom. So it turns out that many people don't want freedom. They want security. And like I said about Benjamin Franklin, he said that if they trade freedom for security, they deserve neither. So that's the end of this. We're a little bit over 30 minutes. And next time we're going to go on to how are we controlled. We're going to talk about censorship and propaganda. See you then. Peace out.